Welcome to the Bigfoot Society. I've got a special episode from the archives for you today. Interview I did with Elijah Henderson from the Cryptid Studies Institute about some wild things he's experienced down in Tennessee. You are not going to want to miss this one. If you've seen a Bigfoot and like to share about it on the show, please contact me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. And if you can't get enough of Bigfoot Society and wish you could hear more episodes, well, there's an extra members-only episode out every week on Wednesday. To get access to that, just join the Patreon at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. Now, let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got a special treat for you tonight, or whenever you're listening to this. Got Mr. Elijah Henderson with me from the Cryptid Studies Institute from beautiful Clarksville, Tennessee. How's it going, Elijah?
It's going good, brother. I'm not sure how beautiful Clarksville is because it's not a lot of nature here anymore. It's mostly city, and I hate it.
But the cool thing is, it sounds like you're getting out in the woods, though. You're
when I
going
can,
after it. Yeah.
When I can. If everybody doesn't mind, excuse my look tonight. As you can see, I sort of have sunglasses shapes sunburned into me. I'm doing construction now, and they've had me outside a whole lot recently.
Oh, I gotcha. Tell me all about what is the Cryptid Studies Institute?
Well, the Cryptid Studies Institute is the brainchild of my dad, Johnny Henderson. He and another researcher, talked about going into a cryptid group, and then it was born, so to speak. It's existed for quite a long time, since maybe about 2015 or so. But our actual YouTube channel, where we do all of our documentaries and whatnot, it's only been around for 2-3 years or so. But in that time, it's been a really great experience. Done a lot of really great things. Talked to a lot of great people and whatnot. And I reckon we're trucking along. Our main spot of research is Land Between the Lakes in Tennessee and Kentucky, and we find ourselves there pretty often. And in fact, I think sometime in May we got a trip with some friends planned to go out there too.
Oh, that's awesome. How far away from Land Between the Lakes are you guys?
So Clarksville, Tennessee, where I'm situated, it's in a really good spot because you're close to a lot of really popular, famous creature sites or spots of renown. From where I'm at, I'm close to about 50 minutes to an hour from Land Between the Lakes, about an hour from Montgomery Bell State Park, where the Werewolf Springs is. I'm like 20 minutes or so from the Bell Witch Haunting site. Hopkinsville, where the Hopkinsville Goblins, stuff happen. If you're into ghosts, close to LBL's Fort Donaldson, I believe it's a supposedly haunted battlefield. And White Bluff, where the White Bluff Screamer stuff happened. A lot of stuff happened close to here, and I'm all like within an hour of it.
So listeners know, the main episode, we're going to be focusing on Bigfoot. Because the cool thing about Elijah, do you call yourselves CSI or Cryptid Studies Institute?
Usually go by Cryptid Studies Institute, but what everybody wants to call us, I reckon.
So Elijah, he's telling me beforehand, they started out with Bigfoot and then they went into Dogman. So the main episode is we're going to be talking about Bigfoot stuff. But Elijah is going to stick around for a Patreon after Patreon episode where he's going to talk specifically about Dogman stuff, because I was like, man, I've got you on here. I'm trying to focus on Bigfoot, but I would be remiss if I didn't spend some time afterwards talking to you about what, from what I've heard, you guys are considered some of the experts on the subject. But the other cool thing, Elijah, is you were kind enough to share a few sounds my way. Let's start off by playing a few of those and getting your commentary on them. Some of them are very interesting. We're going to play the Bigfoot ones, and we'll save the Dogman ones for the after show for the Patreon. But any specific Bigfoot one you want to start out with, or just I'll pick for you?
Man, dealer's choice.
You've got. Well, let me play it here first, and then we'll do some commentary. So,
Kind of doing that night.
I'm going to play it one more time, a little bit louder.
kind of doing that night that we
All right, so that's very interesting, and I think I want to play the other one right after it because it's they're similar. Okay, so what's the story behind those two, Elijah?
So let me give you a little bit of background on the region that comes from. That comes from Indian Mound, Tennessee, and Indian Mound is actually about 27 minutes from Land Between the Lakes, which is very ironic. But I have some people that lives on, good piece of property up there, and they're basically like grandparents for me. I've known them my whole life, so they're like grandparents, but they've lived on this property for like 16, 17 years. And most of the time they've been there, there's been something on their property. And, man, it's been a great research spot down there because it's great in the way a lot of the time you don't have to go out, and hike around in the woods and try to stir something up. If you just sit outside with a fire, generally something will come up and start making noise at you, or you'll just be shooting the breeze outside and you'll hear something off in the distance. Oh, there's the Bigfoot. That first whoop, we were actually sitting in their yard around a campfire, shooting the breeze with the family. And it's like something got curious and came close, fairly close by and heard activity going on. And it was kind of curiously whooping, I guess, to get our attention. Now, that secondary whoop, the people who own the property, they left a audio recorder out all night, and they caught that one. That's how he's gotten a lot of noises. I've actually got like folders of audio clips from him, which may or may not have anything on it. A lot of them I'll probably just have to go through and see if there's something there. But he's gotten a lot of weird noises just by leaving like a little Tupperware bowl with a voice recorder sitting in it overnight. And that second one, I think it might have been called like S2 whoop, something like that. It's a lot higher pitch, so I kind of suspect maybe that was a juvenile because it had like a much higher tone to it.
Oh, absolutely. It's like when I heard him, I was like, are these like, it sounds like almost like gibbons from the zoo. This is incredible. Like, and these are just out in Tennessee at some dude's properties.
Pretty much. Yeah.
It's why I'm going to play the second one more time since we were just talking about it. That's wild, dude. Oh man.
And it's probably the most unique Bigfoot spot I've ever been to. And the reason I say that is, before I get into that, let me give everybody kind of a lay of the land. Indian Mound is a pretty rugged spot. It's starting to get some construction in the area. It's starting to, see some traffic, so to speak, but it's still got quite a bit of nature to it. There's I believe it's a nature reserve. It's called Cross Creeks, pretty close by to this property. And, there's quite a bit of nature there. We found, evidence of like bear up in the region. There's wild boar up there. But this particular spot where these people are living at, it's off the road. You drive up a gravel road up a hill, and they live kind of up on top of a hill, and they're surrounded by lots and lots of woods. There's a couple of houses like around them, a couple of different properties, but basically it's all out in the woods and some fields and whatnot. Now, one of the thing that makes it the most unique Bigfoot spot I've ever been to is that in the time we've been there, it imitates a donkey, and there's not a donkey up there, but when I was a little boy, there used to be a donkey like way down the road, and where they live from where the donkey was, you would never be able to hear that. It's just too far of a distance. But up on top of that hill where their property is, you'll hear donkeys braying out in the woods, and there's nothing like that in those woods. And they'll, bray in different points on the property. I have an audio clip somewhere in there, like 2 or 3 donkeys braying at the same time. And yeah, man, that it makes it really wild because in this day and age, there is no more donkey anywhere around. And he's even asked his neighbors before, hey, you ever hear like a donkey out here? And his neighbor told him, there's no donkey out there. Ain't been donkey out here long time, or there's never been a donkey out here. So there's something around there that's imitating a donkey.
That's wild. I'm going to play the sound in a minute, but it's just, so the weird thing is like, you know, I've interviewed people about Bigfoot for a few years, and what I've got so far is Bigfoot try to make sounds that don't make sense. There are people that will hear what they think sounds like a car door in the middle of the woods, far from away from any cars. That doesn't make sense. And who's to say that they couldn't do a donkey impression? And let's listen to it right now. This is really fascinating. Here we go.
Now everybody can hear that there's like 2 or 3 donkey sounds there. And historically, from when I was a boy, I only ever seen one donkey down the road. That's like 3, 4 donkeys there.
I don't know what to think of that, man. It sounds like no tracks have been found, no donkey tracks, nothing like that.
Nothing like that, man. And
wow.
This is all like rugged woods. Like on one side where you could hear some of these sounds, it's a thick wooded hill and it goes straight down a hill like into a deep ravine, and then it comes back up on the other side. It's all just like one deep ravine. I'll be working out there since he's like my grandpa in the day, and I'll just hear like a donkey braying in the woods, and I'm like, there's that Bigfoot. Somewhere I've got a recording and I haven't been able to find it. I would love to have it back. I don't know if it got deleted or what. We were sitting around the fire there one night because me and my dad, we'd made a geodesic dome and put it out on the property and used it like a big giant tent, through a welder's tarp over the top of it. We were sitting around a fire around that campsite, which was smack dab right in the woods. That donkey started braying pretty close to the camp, real deep sounding. And it sounded like it got strangled on something, like it got strangled on its own spit. And then started like trying to bray, and it was like coughing at the same time. It was a good audio clip, but I haven't been able to find it. It drives me mad sometimes. I'll be looking through everything, can't find it.
That would drive me nuts, because it's like, because that's like something's trying to imitate it, and then it's got like a frog in its throat or something.
It was some impressive audio, and man, you hear all sorts of stuff out there. We've heard like things that sound like cows up there. As far as I know, there's no cows. Tropical bird sounds, some stuff that just sounds like out of the ordinary. At least in the entirety I've been there, I've never seen a cow close to that property that I can recall. But sometimes you'll hear it, like some of those audio clips in there, it's coming like from out of the woods, where nothing like that would be.
You said this is Indian Mound.
Yes, sir. It's about 27 minutes from the opening of the south end of Land Between the Lakes.
Is it named because there is an Indian Mound in that area, I would imagine?
That's why it's named that.
Oh, man.
And I'm friends with a safety man who he used to have, things happen to him down there, some unusual things when he was a younger man. And he knows where the Indian Mounds are. So they're still down there. I don't know where they are, but he said he was, doing some hunting pretty close to one night, and he gave us like a weird supernatural encounter. Some of those audio clips are as recent as like probably around September, October 2022.
What do you have a feeling as to like, what do you think Bigfoot is? What are you dealing with when you're out there?
Well, I think he kind of got a lot of things going on, to be honest. You got your group of people that think it's, something supernatural or something interdimensional, because you got all these folk that report it just vanished right before my eyes, or I watched it step into a portal. You got your more unusual stories like that, and then you got something that comes from a more grounded point of view. Like I was watching it. It was knelt down and eaten out of a blueberry bush, just something like that. I've actually got hair samples here that was genetically tested and came back as undocumented primate. So I think there is something physical running around in some capacity. But I think a lot of the things people see, there is something supernatural, impersonating something like that or appearing as it. There's a lot of confusion that could be spread, if something out there demonic is posing as one of these things. You can really stir the pot.
I know it. That's you do have to be aware of what you're investigating, etc. As some listeners may be aware. So you sent it off to a lab and unknown primate, really?
Well, it wasn't me that sent it off. What happened was when I was a boy, we used to go to these groups. Are you familiar with Mary Green?
Yes. But for listeners who aren't, would you mind describe the quick summary?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Mary Green was a famous Bigfoot researcher, and she did a lot of work with the Chattahoochee Bigfoot Research Organization. And when I was a little boy, we joined that group, and they would have annual gatherings in Standing Stone State Park. That's where they did a lot of research. We've done a lot of research. It used to be a really good spot, and it's declined pretty badly. But Mary Green, she wrote the book 50 Years with Bigfoot, which they got an audio book of it on YouTube, but it's about impossible to get a physical copy anymore. But she's a very well-known woman. She would have sort of more, in her research, it seemed to take more of a personal relationship with the Bigfoot, because, she would have specific Bigfoot she worked with in Standing Stone that she would call by name. She'd go into this spot called Grumpy's Place or Grumpy Spot, and there's a Sasquatch there named Grumpy that, they'd sometimes have experiences with. I forget the names of the other one. That was when I was a little boy, but yeah, she for one of those annual conferences that they had up there, they had a sort of raffle that they were doing. They had like a poster board sitting on a table, and they'd have different prizes. And one of the prizes was some of those hair samples, and they had, pictures of the results of the hair that came back from the lab. And just as a nice gesture, Mary gave me and my sister like 3 bags, like with a couple of strands of that hair in it. And yeah, that's how we got a hold of that.
Nice. Yeah, there you go. I love it. Chattahoochee, is that in Georgia or Tennessee?
It was Georgia. We'd meet up in Tennessee. It was over in Overton County at Standing Stone State Park. And it used to be such a good spot, man, but I'm not going to name names, publicly. But from what I heard, a very well-known TV Bigfoot researcher went over there and was firing guns, and you can't hardly get anything to show up there anymore. I've heard like sort of outside of the park that people have stuff happen, but actually in the park at the old locations.
So has Bigfoot been in your family DNA for quite a while, Elijah? Or is
like our family history and whatnot?
Yeah. Sorry, that was a really weird way to say that. My apologies. I was like,
it's no problem.
That got weird. Yeah, family history. Let's say that.
Yeah, so there has been a lot of Bigfoot stories in my family. So my dad, my grandma all come from East Tennessee over at Dayton, Tennessee. And for those that aren't familiar with that area, it's a small town. Even today, it's small, but it's starting to get bigger. It's where the famous Scopes monkey trial took place, which was basically the starting point of evolution being taught in the schools. It was the creation versus evolution court debate, so to speak. And that's the same town where that took place. But, there's been quite a bit of activity happen up there. my family used to own some property up there. They would, in the 60s, they'd been there for a while, but this took place sometime in the 60s. Where they lived, it was down a old gravel road, and there's trees on both sides, and they'd kind of curl over like this and, make the road really dark at night. It would, block out a lot of the light. And they'd be coming down that road at night, after getting their business done in the day, whatever it was. And they would hear something following them up on the hillside. They'd see little stones coming down the hill, kind of rolling down the hill as it was walking. They would walk, it would walk and follow them. If they'd start running, it would run. Or if they just stopped, it would stop. Classic Bigfoot. And they would run back to the house, and this thing would be coming after them. And they'd close the door, and they didn't have like a deadbolt or anything like that on their door. So they'd push the stove up against the door to try to keep this thing out. And they'd see the doorknob, the door kind of shaking back and forth like that. And it didn't seem to know how to operate the actual doorknob mechanism. But I guess it watched them, and, it was grabbing the door and shaking it. Things continued down there, and the family one night was sitting around, listening to Loretta Lynn records.
Nice.
And they heard some sort of noise coming from the window. They looked over, and they seen something looking in at them. I think I was told that it was kind of growling or kind of raspy breathing, something or other. But it had glowing red eyes, is watching them, and it kind of had a monkeyish appearance, but it had a wide nose like an old man, it was described to me. And, this was the deep south, over in Appalachia. So what did they decide to do? They took the rifle outside, and they were going to try to shoot this thing. But, get outside, it's gone. Can't find anything. Well, things progress a little more. And on my Aunt Myrtle's farm, they're having hogs come up missing, And at that time, hogs were a staple. They were food. They, you could trade them if you wanted to. They were just really a staple resource for the people up there. And to have them come up missing was a big problem. So one of my uncles, one of them, he's not living anymore, but he was one of the meanest men to ever bother daylight. Nothing really scared him. He did a stakeout with some other folk. And, they were watching to see who was coming up here taking the hogs. Well, they described that something that looked like a gorilla loped out of the woods, stepped over the fence into the hog fence, picked one up by its front legs, by its back legs, slung it over its shoulders like that, traipsed back into the woods. And he said he wouldn't have shot it for anything. It would just made it mad and would come and killed us. But, hogs are massive. My sister's got a mini pig. He's not mini anymore, but I can't even wrangle him, So something just coming in there and grabbing actual hogs, grabbing them by the legs, throwing it over its shoulders and just taking off with it. That's some force there.
I cannot imagine seeing that with my own eyes, man. That must have been
so
wild.
Cool. Be so cool, man. And I guess the last thing from up at that property that I know of is one of it was either a cousin or an uncle. I'm sorry, I can't remember which, but he was riding his horse out in the field around that property. And as it was described, there's one of those Bigfoot sleeping in the field, and his horse jumped over it, and it scared the Bigfoot. It jumped up and run. It scared the horse. It started doing its thing, and obviously it scared my family member. Some versions of the story, it bucked him off, and some versions of the story, he was able to hold on to it. But either way, that horse jumped over a Sasquatch, and it terrified both of them. Bigfoot got up and run. And sometime after all this stuff had happened, the neighboring county started having newspaper reports of a wild man around there, and they didn't really have anything go on there anymore that I know of. So I guess it moved on, whatever it was.
That's good, man. Is that property still in your family then?
No, there's a.
Oh man.
Oh, what was it? It's like the housing projects. They're built there now. It's on a hillside, and it's kind of overlooking,
Wow.
some of the town. But at that time, it was a lot more wooded and whatnot. I've got a picture of like the old place. I can privately send it to you later if you want to see sort of where it was at. because
Yeah,
it's only like a shot of like one of the houses. You can't really see the woods, but you can see the house that was there is off in the distance.
See, this is why people don't get like how can these Sasquatch be seen like so close to houses? Well, it's because the areas where we're building houses used to be extremely wooded, and we just cut all the trees down and put up some parking lots and stuff. You know, it's like that's how it happens. It's crazy. In your area, yeah, I love hearing about like the regional Bigfoot stories, like the names you don't hear, the names that you're not going to see in the books. Are there, you know, creatures that are well known in your area that have like the crazy nicknames, like that? There's an Alabama white thing or any
gotcha.
Bigfoot type creatures down in your area?
Well, close to me, not in Clarksville, because Clarksville's pretty awful. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty awful. I've heard a Bigfoot story or two from up here in Clarksville, but it's all neighboring things. We got about 40-50 minutes from here with the White Bluff Screamer, and that place is unique because you've got almost like two variations of the way it's told. Some variations are that it's like a supernatural spirit type thing, and then some variations are more of like a told like it was a Bigfoot. Excuse me if I forget some of the details, but it's the most famous story that I know of attributed to it was something to the effect of every night. This is probably like 1800s, something like that. But this feller, you know, he was in his home, and late in the night, he'd hear just some sort of blood-curdling scream off in the woods. And, you know, this would repeat, I guess, for a night or two or however long. But he eventually was hearing it again one night, and he decided he was going to go check it out, whatever this was. So, you know, he got his gear, whatever that was. I guess it would have been a lantern and a gun. Went off in the woods, storming off after this thing. And he would hear these blood-curdling screams, and he'd approach them, but he could never get closer to them. They was always kind of moving further away. And then when he got so far off in the woods, he heard all these horrible screams coming from his house. And he turned around, ran back to his house, got home, and his wife and kids had been just massacred by something.
Whoa. And
I remember hearing something like he looked out his window and he could see like a white Bigfoot shape standing there. And I want to say they had left like footprints in the grass that almost looked like they'd been burned into the grass. Now, like I said, sometimes it'll be told in more of like it was a spirit. Sometimes it'll be told more like it was a Sasquatch. Now, I do got a buddy up there who he got some recordings as, I want to say he said it was as a train was going by, but it sounds like Godzilla roaring in the distance. If anybody wants to hear that, I've got a White Bluff Screamer video on my channel, and that audio's in it. Not trying to self-promote or anything, but if anybody wants to hear the audio, it's there.
Oh, everyone should go over. So the thing is, I'm sure half the people have been there and subscribed, and the other half need to go there, watch the video, and subscribe and hit the bell, because Cryptid Studies Institute YouTube channel is legit. It's good.
I sure appreciate that, man.
You're good stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be in the show notes. Don't you worry. But at the end of the day, you're saying that the story is that this white Sasquatch took out a family, or almost a whole family. That's wild, man.
Yeah. Whether it was a Bigfoot, some sort of evil spirit, something, that's one of the stories attributed to it. And now, I mean, just right close to that area. I mean, it's basically same area. White Bluff is basically smack dab up against Montgomery Bell State Park, and there's Bigfoot activity up there. My dad seen, and another researcher named Nathan Davis seen 3 of them up there in 2009. And even Mary Green, who we talked about earlier, said that the Bigfoot up there were known to be kind of a violent variety. And on the back side of the park there, you got Werewolf Springs, where historically there's been more what seem to be dogman sightings up there. Violent dogman sightings.
So all this crazy stuff is going on in the same area as the Bell Witch Cave.
Well, from Clarksville, it's about 20 or so minutes. So it's probably like, an hour or so from Montgomery Bell State Park, but it's all roughly in the same area. I mean, Bell Witch stuff happened in Robertson County, and in that same county, you know, there's been Bigfoot reports. There's you got the Critter of Carr Creek up there. It's a weird area, man.
Dude, I mean, that's close enough for me. Like if I'm like an hour away from the Bell Witch Cave, that's close enough for me. That stuff, that's wild, man. But tell me about the critter. What's the story on the critter there?
Well, the Critter of Carr Creek, it's kind of described as like a hyena, and you can find newspaper reports about it. The Critter of Carr Creek, as they called it, and every now and then people still see some sort of hyena-ish looking canine up there. I got a friend who we went to a Bigfoot conference in Land Between the Lakes with him, and he was saying he's seen something like that down in a creek. And what's kind of ironic, I work construction, so, you know, I'm around a lot of people. I was shooting the breeze with this guy. You know, I'm an expediter, and he's in the trailer next to me. He's a electrician's expediter. And we're out there talking one day. He said he was from Robertson County, Springfield area. I was like, man, hey, they still see them hyena-looking things up there? And he shook his head, yeah, people still see them up there.
Whoa.
So maybe that's some of the dog men that are up there, you know, because sometimes they'll go from on all fours to upright. Maybe it's like just some hyena that was in a circus show and got released up here. I don't know, man. But some of those you'll see the name America's Hyena thrown around on the internet for some things being seen.
And listeners may have just got a little bit of a hint as to how to ask someone about if they've seen a creature the good way, which is, hey, you ever seen the, you know, just be nice about it. Be kind of, you know, don't be super direct and serious. Just be a nice guy, and man, you're gonna get some info. That's how you do it.
Man, I tell you what, being around all these people in construction, they know exactly what I do. I'm always shooting the breeze with them about Bigfoot and whatnot. And I'll go up to them and I'll be like, man, you know, this is gonna be random, but in my experience, it seems like everybody's got at least one bizarre story to tell in their lifetime. At least one weird thing's happened to them that they can't quite account for. You ever had anything like that? And he'll kind of be like, well, you mean like supernatural? I mean, like, yeah, just, you know, supernatural, Bigfoot, anything like that? And he'd be like, well, I was in this house when I was a young man, and it was attributed to be haunted. And me and my buddies were up there, and we were up in the attic. And all at one time, out of nowhere, all the doors in the house, every single door in the house just slammed shut all at once. And we got the heck out of there. And I don't think he's a gentleman that generally believes in that type of thing. So everybody seems to have at least one story to tell, generally.
That is a great piece of advice too about how to approach someone. Like, what's your weird thing? Oh, that's so good, man. I love it. I'm gonna remember that one too. Are you a guy that tries to go after the reports that are held by the state forestry and the state parks in your state? Do you do any of those report things, or stick more to witness reports?
Well, we sort of just have areas, you know, we've always went to, you know, as family, like, hey, there's been activity up here. Let's go up here. So I usually hit the same spots. Over in Dayton, Tennessee, there's a park up there called Pocket Wilderness, or I think the newer name's like Laurel Falls or Laurel State Falls or something like that. But the town's always called it Pocket Wilderness. One of the rangers, the officials up there, he'll be pretty open and just tell you, yeah, there's Bigfoot in this park. I've had people let me back up. There's been a like a lot of coal mining done in that park before.
Okay.
And there's a ventilation shaft that you can walk up to that's right along the path. Basically, on one half, you got all this beautiful water rushing and big giant boulders. And on this other side, you got the hills going right up to the mountain. It's the most beautiful park I've ever been to. But there's a ventilation shaft on, one of those hillsides, and he's had like 5 different people tell him that they've seen a Bigfoot coming out of that ventilation shaft. It only goes so far back, but it's, it's full of water and whatnot, and maybe something goes in there, drink, or just get shelter. It's not extremely big, but even he seen it. It was throwing stuff off of one of the hillsides at his truck. I remember he said something like that someone told him they were hiking up somewhere along that hill and they seen one up there. I believe it was a reddish color, and it was a fairly violent Bigfoot. But yeah, I've got him. I wouldn't post it because I wouldn't want him to, lose his job or anything. But I've got audio of him recorded telling us about it. And even his boss told him, man, stop telling people this stuff. You're going to scare somebody. But he just seems to keep telling people.
Elijah, how do you get a park ranger to get to be like, you just ask him, hey, you okay with being recorded talking about Bigfoot, or how does that go down?
He's super cool about it.
Okay.
You'll go up there and he'll just kind of be leaning on a post. I guess he loves the history of the park. Real good guy. He's like, you want some history? And he'll go up and just shoot the breeze, and he'll tell you about like the history of the park, show this like photo album he's made of like the ventilation shafts and there's like an old dynamite shack he'll show you pictures of. And he just kind of, I guess, just sort of transition the conversation, or at some point he may just kind of tell you, yeah, there's something up here. But I remember even seeing somewhere online where somebody was talking about the ranger up there, telling him a Bigfoot stories, like just some random post online. He's super open about it. Yeah,
that's amazing, dude.
He may still be up there. I haven't seen him in a long time, but
that's wild.
Real cool guy.
The thing I love about your area, it is so rich with just wild, untamed stories of creatures and supernatural and things you can't explain. And everybody seems to be into it. It is awesome.
It's a weird spot down here, man.
Does that ever get old?
I love all sorts of weird stuff. Awesome. So I'm like, oh man, we got all this down here. We got Bigfoot over here. We got Dogman over here. I love it, man.
I mean, it's like you're living Scooby-Doo pretty much. Like you just go out on the weekends and,
Yeah. What's really ironic is where I live. Historically, before this was Tennessee and Kentucky, some organization called like the Henderson organization, which is ironic, the Henderson Foundation, something.
Yeah, right.
No, maybe it's just a bunch of Hendersons, but they are with the I think it was the Transylvania Company. And this land around here actually used to be called Transylvania. So, I mean, how's that for ironic,
Jeez. Wow. That's weird, man.
Looking for monsters in Transylvania.
That is crazy. Was there ever a time that, I know you said earlier that you earlier in all this, you guys were Bigfoot 100%. Was there ever a time when you were out looking for Bigfoot that things just got to a point where you're like, you know what? I'm not sure if I want to be right here, right now. Like it just got a little bit too crazy.
Well, actually, there has been a time or two like that over in Indian Mound. This was I was still fairly young at the time. I was with my dad, fellow researcher. His name was Jason Acey, and my sister. And we were walking. It's on somebody's around somebody's property, like where they've built now, so we can't really get to it as well as we could years ago now. But we were crossing one of the fields out there, and there is a cave off on in the woods somewhere over in that area, and we're going to that cave. It's a big rock face, and it's a pretty narrow gap that you can crawl into, and it opens up. But it's a fairly decently sized cave, but it's a tight entrance in the front. You know what I mean? But anyway, we were going to that cave, and we spied some blue eye shine off in the woods, which there's not really a lot of animals that give off blue eye shine. We had heard that juvenile animals have a blue eye shine color, and we didn't know if maybe there's some sort of a juvenile Sasquatch there. It was low to the ground, and there's kind of a ditch behind where it was. And, we shined our lights at it and just kind of stared at it for a few minutes and then went further off in the woods toward this thing, toward the cave, my bad. And we're walking along, and I got this audio somewhere. You hear just something snapping. You can hear like the individual fibers of a tree snapping, and then boom, this tree just slams on the ground. And I heard something hollering. I don't think anybody else with me heard it, but I heard it. And that was one of the only times my dad has ever drawn his gun in the woods. He's like, yeah, Jason, you and me, we can come back if you want, but I need to get my kids out of here. This is dangerous. And he had his gun out and ready in case something came out. But we left. We didn't know if maybe we got too close to its juvenile, and it was kind of letting us know, hey, stay out of here. But that's one of the only times I've ever seen my dad draw a gun in the woods. And we're not like pro kill people, but we're pro. If something attacks us, we're gonna defend ourselves. You know what I mean? You're
pro. I'm gonna get out of this alive if I have anything to say about this.
Absolutely. You can attack me, but I'm gonna go out fighting. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right. I don't know what your thoughts about this, but it's like if someone actually, let's say these groups where it's like we're gonna take down a Bigfoot. Well, dude, you might. But it's going to be the worst day you've ever experienced after you take down that Bigfoot and the other three come out just disgruntled as all get out. And dude, you guys are going like, I don't want to wish bad on anyone, but it is like, man, you just be careful. If you're going to take one down, you better be ready for its brothers that are coming after you.
Well, you got all these stories of people shooting these things and nothing happens, but you don't hear a lot if people try to shoot toward the face and eyes or the neck. If I was going to try to shoot something like that, I would aim for probably either the neck, the mouth, or the eyes, so the sensitive areas.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. I've never thought that deep about it. I'm not a super outdoors man, if you can imagine. But yeah, that's interesting to think. That's an interesting discussion there.
Well, if you think about it, if it was something, some sort of ape-like thing that's as massive as people say, you already got a lot of thick muscle in its chest, and then you got that thick chest bone that the bullet would have to penetrate. And if you aim for the head, if it's like an ape, you also have a lot of apes have kind of that thick brow that you'd have to worry about as well. So you better be carrying something with some knockdown power. Just something awesome. Like that. I think we'll go to LBL tomorrow night or something.
Dude, that is man. This has been a super fun discussion. I think a good intro discussion to what you all are up to down there in Tennessee. And guys, you need to go over to Elijah's YouTube channel next after you're done listening to this, and you just need to start watching some of those videos because there's some wild stuff going on in there. Elijah, thank you so much for hanging out with me in the main show. We're going to be talking for a little bit longer about some Dogman stuff, some LBL stuff. That's going to be for the Patreon after show. I've got maybe some other questions to ask you about some other non-Bigfoot related creatures.
Absolutely.
But, please take a few minutes. If there's anything else that you would like to make sure the listeners know, anything you need to plug besides the YouTube channel, go right ahead, man.
Thank you, brother. And I've had a blast on here as well. Just so you know.
Thank you.
My main outfit is Cryptid Studies Institute. My main platform is YouTube. I upload all my investigations, documentaries and whatnot all there. You can find most, if not all, those sounds. Well, not one of them because I just haven't uploaded it. But a lot of our sounds are on there. You can go and listen to, or they'll be in the videos for each area. But yeah, come over and check out the channel. Let me know what you think. We got a lot of different Dogman research videos, Bigfoot. Got a lot of different things on there. And yeah, I guess that's all I got. If you want to send me friend request on Facebook, feel free to. We're on Facebook. We got an Instagram that I don't really use anymore. Sorry. But yeah, that's basically it, y'all.
That's awesome. And if the cool thing about this podcast is I have like listeners all over the place. If there's a person, let's say, if they know something weird in that area, how best can they get in touch with you to say, hey man, I gotta tell you about what happened to me in this area so you know about it?
Well, you can always drop me a comment on YouTube, send me a message on Facebook, or my email is cryptidstudiesinstitute@gmail.com. I'll try to get back as quick as, when I can. I'm sorry. I'm bad about getting back quickly. You know how that went, Jeremiah. I have good intentions, but I'll generally forget to reply back to somebody. I'll get a message. Oh yeah, I'll reply to that in just a few minutes, and I'll forget. It'll be like 2 days later.
Hey, that's all right.
Whoops. But yeah, I'll try to get back to everybody when I can.
And remember, if you're in the Patreon, go have a listen, because we're going to be talking about LBL and Dogman, and the rest of y'all can check that out too. Patreon.com/Bigfoot Society. But thank you so much for coming on, Elijah.
Hey, no problem, brother.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. All right, I'm going to use this space this week to announce that I'll be at the Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon as an attender. I won't be presenting or anything, but I'll be hanging out, trying to interview people that have had Bigfoot encounters. If you're from the Oak Ridge, Oregon area or surrounding and you've had a Bigfoot experience, please contact me directly, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Also, Priscilla was nice enough that if you get your tickets through SasquatchSummerfest.com and use code Bigfoot Society, you can get 50% off the cost of your tickets, which is a big amount. So code Bigfoot Society to get 50% off your tickets, SasquatchSummerfest.com, and helps out the podcast as well. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. I had a listener comment, hey, what's a current update with the road to getting to full-time? Well, here's the deal. The push, as if you've seen on social media, is, well, now I've kind of tweaked it a little bit. So by my calculations, once we get 824 people in the Patreon, we should be good to go. So what I did is we're going to do it a little bit differently. It's now adding the current amount plus the amount that are joining, and there's tons of people joining every day. It's wild, guys. So right now we're at 176 members are in there, ready to go out of the 824 that are needed in order for us to go full-time. That puts us at about 22%. So if you've been putting around back and forth the idea of joining the Bigfoot Society Patreon, now's the time. I'm telling you, it's time to check it out. $7 a month starts. It's $15 a month as well, but $7 a month is a great place to start. Patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And if you can't swing that, please just share the show with your friends and make sure you're subscribed on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube as well. But thanks again so much for listening, guys.
I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.